Good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. We are, where is it? Spirit's book here. We are in the law of equality. We still have a couple of items to go before we finish it, and we stopped here on question 817, equal rights for men and women. Okay, very appropriate, one day after the Women's International Day, right? Before we go there, let me remind everyone that this was written in 1857, right? 1860. At that time, women had no right whatsoever. You don't have the right to vote. You don't have the right, many places, to have properties, to inheritance, to take care of themselves. They were considered in many places incapable of taking care of themselves. They were ruled by men. This is throughout history. If we go study history, we see that in ancient civilizations, there are some ancient civilizations that treated women with the same rights as men, Mesopotamia and others. But very early, for instance, at the time of the Greek civilization, women were already treated as inferior beings, okay? And that has lasted throughout history. Of course, different places have different laws and regulations. Women started to fight more aggressively for their rights in the beginning of the 19th century. But until today, we still have some countries that women are not considered equal to men, like Saudi Arabia. Most countries in the world, according to their laws, women and men are equal in rights, but we know that that's not the reality of how they're treated, right? So still there is some way to go there. But when we talk about what the spirits told us in 1857, it's important because some of the answers here may look as they are not outdated, but they are not what we think today. But you have to remember that for 1860, 1857, this is way ahead of time. All the answers that the spirits give us here. And the spirits, again, they have to express themselves in a way that we understand at the time they are expressing themselves. Right? So they couldn't talk about cellular cell phones in 1860. They, probably some spirits in the spirit world knew that this was coming in the future, but we didn't even have words. So that's all to put into context what we're going to study here and for us to reflect when we are discussing the questions here, okay? Okay, Philip, 817, please.
Are men and women equal in God's eyes, and do they have the same rights? Has God not given them both the knowledge of good and evil and the ability to advance?
Okay, again, before God would be better in English here, right? We concluded that. God's eyes, it's a literal translation from French or Portuguese, but it's not an expression used in English. So again, the answer from the spirits is very direct and very simple. God has given both knowledge of good and evil and the ability to advance. So they are the same. It is the same. We are equal. And we'll see a little bit more further.
(818)
Yeah.
Where does the moral inferiority of women in some countries originate? In the cruel and unjust authority that man has seized over them. This is a result of social institutions and the abusive exercise of strength over weakness. Among morally inferior men, might makes right.
And this is the history of civilization, right? Men imposing their will through strength, forcing women to inferior position in society, in most of the societies throughout history and until today, right? Again, as we are imperfect spirits and we are still struggling to evolve, we still carry with us the instinctive tendency to impose our will through strength, right? And because men are generally stronger than women throughout history, men were able to impose their will and domination without women being able to resist this. Okay. Okay. Questions, comments? All right.
8.
8. Oh, 19.
Did we do 19? No.
Yeah, 8, 19, sorry.
Why are women physically weaker than men? So that she may be assigned special functions. Men are built for rough work as they are stronger, while women are built for lighter work. Both may help each other through the trials of a bitter life.
Yeah, so when we read this answer, this is a clear answer. It's still valid today, right? But women have been able in many cases to be as strong as men, as competitive as men, and many other things, right? But at that time, and again, the natural answer is we are different. Women and men are different because we have different functions. Men cannot give birth, women can give birth. Women has more sensibility. Again, we're talking in general, we're not talking specifically, right? We have men that have more sensibility, some men that have more sensibility than some women, but in general, this is the spirits are active here. Yes. But if we think of the middle of the 19th century, right? Most men, what type of work men were doing? Physical work, right? Exactly.
And we have technology for like the automations that are used for women to perform the same work.
Yeah, so women were at that time, and still today many societies, were built what? To take care of the children, to take care of the house. And so different strengths. And of course, when you work with your physical attributes, you only get stronger, right? And women don't get stronger because they are not using strength. They may develop resistance because a lot of, you know, the work at home requires a lot of effort. But it's interesting, right? When you look at different societies, there are societies where women have different roles that in general, right? I saw some documentaries on some tribes that women have more power than men for different reasons, right? But here, remember, we're talking about the general population, right? That's what the spirits are addressing. So the differences are important for us to evolve, to work together. Then we know as spirits, right? We study the law of society. We need to work together so we can all learn from each other and evolve. And in that evolutionary process, the roles, men and women, are important roles that we all have to go through our different incarnations, because we have to develop both sides. But it's important for us to understand the differences and even to accept the necessity of the differences, right? Not to try to force men and women to be equal when we need different attributes for each one, right? More and more as we evolve, again, less and less we need those differences, right? They say there will be a time that women will no longer need to give birth, right? In the very distant future, we are starting to see the development of conception outside the women, right? Still, you still need the women, right? But can we think about a time in X years where we will no longer women will no longer need to give birth? Possible, right? Why not? Science is developing. We, at the time of that this was written, we couldn't imagine that you know, we could control a lot of the things we control today, right? So as we continue evolving, we will learn more and evolve in different directions, and the differences between men and women will tend to be reduced and reduced, because in the end, we, the eternal spirit, have no gender, right? When we become a perfect spirit, we have no gender. We use the incarnations as male and female because of the need of us to evolve, the procreation and all these things that involves being either man or woman. But in terms of us as eternal spirits, we don't have any gender. Okay? All right? Questions, comments? Okay.
820.
Yeah.
Does a woman's physical weakness make her naturally dependent on a man? God has given strength to some to protect the weak, but not to reduce them to slavery and suppression. God has created the physical makeup of each being for the role it has to carry out. God has given less physical strength to women. However, they were made more sensitive in harmony with their maternal functions and the weakness of the beings confided to her care.
Okay, this last was a comment by Kardec. Okay, the answer from the spirits is God has given strength to some to protect the weak, but not to reduce them to slavery and suppression. And that's the spirits already telling us about slavery, which we're going to study in the next chapter. At that time, slavery was still present in many countries in the world, right? Legal slavery. So, of course, as a society, we need to have those that are stronger in different areas, protecting the weak in different areas. And again, here he's talking about physical strength, right? But we know that as a society, we need people that are capable in different areas, if we bring it to today, right? We know we need people that are good in teaching, people that are good in math, in physics, in health, different people, different abilities, so we can all help each other progress. But the spirits are very strong here, saying, you know, we don't have the right to slave or oppress anyone. And the comment by Kardec is more focused on the physical strength of women being less than men, but they being made more sensitive, which, you know, we know it's true, right? We have the different abilities between men and women, and normally men are less sensitive than women, again, in general, but we know that there are plenty of exceptions, and more as we evolve, right? Okay.
821. Is a woman's natural role as important as that given to man? Yes, even more so, because she gives him his first notions of life.
Okay, so here the spirits are telling us that the natural role of a woman is as important or even more, right, than the man, because they are responsible for educating their children from the early ages, which is in the end, which is what matters for the evolutionary path of humanity, right? To have well-educated children. And, you know, nowadays we read this and it seems not out of context. It seems not very unnatural, but can you imagine when you read that in 1860 in the society we live there, when the spirit tells us that women are more important than men? I can imagine a lot of men were not happy to read this and maybe dismissed the teachings of the spirits as a whole, right? Okay.
822.
Yep.
As all human beings are equal according to God's law, should they also be such according to human-made law? This is a cornerstone of justice. Do unto others what you want others to do unto you. In order to be perfectly just, should legislation establish the equality of rights between men and women? Equality of rights, yes, but with respect to functions, it should be noted that while there are many similarities between the sexes, there are also distinct differences. Each sex should be encouraged to develop according to their special abilities and strengths. Human-made law, to be just, should establish equal rights for men and women. Any privilege granted to either sex conflicts with justice. Women's rights and freedom are in line with the progress of civilization, as her oppression is a condition of barbarism. In addition, gender only exists through the physical makeup. Since spirits can assume that of either sex, there is no difference between them in this respect, and they should enjoy the same rights.
Okay, so again, the spirits are very direct here. And when we are talking about human-made law, right, which Kardec asked, because at that time, there were no laws that put women and men in the same level, right? The laws were made by men for men, and women were not considered into the law, right? There are some sectors of the church that didn't recognize that women had soul until the late 19th century. So the spirits here says the human-made laws, this is the cornerstone of justice. We are all equal, and the law has to treat us equally, men, women, and any others, right? And that, you know, I think it applies to many of the discussions we are having today as we are expanding the notions of gender, right? That we continue to have equal rights and equal rights and obligations for all human beings, independently of how they choose to identify themselves or how they choose to act. So in that sense, it's clear here. But the spirits tells us, and we need to reflect on that. With respect to functions, it should be noted that while there are many similarities between the sexes, there are also distinct differences. So what they're telling us here, let us not try to force ourselves outside of what we are. If it comes natural, it comes natural. So let's say a woman that likes to work in a job that normally is reserved for men. She has all the rights to be there, but she shouldn't force herself just to prove a point, just to make herself equal to men, and vice versa, right? There are some professions that are mainly exercised by women. Men shouldn't force oneself to work if they don't feel that they really like what they're doing. So that's what the difference is here. That's what the spirits are telling us. We all have a role in society to evolve, and our individual need and a responsibility towards society. And we need to try to develop our abilities, whatever they are. Remember when we discussed last week that in a perfect world, we all would work where we love to do, and society will be a much better place if everyone is able to do what they really like, right? And what they really like, it's independent, right? So we can expand this into not only men and women, but anyone, right? We shouldn't have any prejudices against choices of anyone to do anything that they feel they love to do and they are able to do. But to understand the differences between men and women, it's important, right? It's part of our necessity here, because the process of reincarnations, how the Spirit tells us it works. You incarnate several incarnations in one gender, and then you move, change, and then you incarnate several incarnations in the other gender. In general, it can be changed, you come in one and another if needed. But if you look at Emmanuel through the books of Francisco Xavier, right? 2000 years ago, 50 years later, Hail Christ, Renunciation, he's always incarnating as man, right? Why? He probably had incarnations as woman that we don't know. He for sure had, not probably, for sure had. But he's at a point as an evolved spirit that he can contribute more to society, to us, incarnating as a man, right? We talk about Jesus. Why did Jesus incarnated as a man?
Because
at that time, if he incarnated as a woman, nobody would ever pay attention to him, right? He had to come as a man, right? So that's important for us to understand the process and understand that we are in a society, we are still inferior spirits. We're still struggling to learn to find ourselves in our own places, right? But we need to try to exercise our ability to have no prejudices and to respect people's choice, individual choices. Again, unless these individual choices are a risk to themselves and to society, then we have to have human laws to prevent abuses, right? And that's why we have human laws. But it is, the spirits are telling us here, women's rights and freedom are in line with the progress of civilization, and her oppression is a condition of barbarism. We're still 21st century in many places in the world, acting like barbarians, right? Oppressing women, persecuting women, and just recently with the Me Too movement, we see how we're still taking advantage and abusing women, right? And it still happens, right? So, okay, this was the last one. So comments, questions on this subject, please. No, nobody?
So all this movement about gender that we see right now, right? Maybe it's the back of evolution so that there's no gender.
Again, it's according to our necessities, right? What is happening is something that was always present in society, but it was hidden, right? Mm-hmm. Nowadays, we have the ability to more freedom to express our needs, So that's why it's coming out more. And of course, the more it goes out in the open, more resistance it creates, because you have conservative minds that because of maybe their own internal issues, have to try to suppress this because of religious beliefs, because of other type of beliefs. And not everyone that is against out of despite. Some of them really believe that it's a sin or it's things like that, right? But you see how much we came already, right? You cannot imagine this type of movement happening 50 years ago, right? Until the 60s, women continue not to have any freedom, right? So the rights of the LGBTQ were not non-existent. So if you are trying to oppress these rights, is because they are happening. They are coming, to the forefront of society, and they will become like women's freedom, which we're still fighting. But it's, again, it's illegal to discriminate against women. They still discriminate against women, but it's not legal, it's illegal. So it will be illegal to discriminate against these other forms someday, because this is the start of a movement, and everything that starts finds a lot of resistance, and sometimes you have to walk back to be able to move forward, right? I was reading about the women's movement in the 1850s. One of the first fights was for the right to vote, right?
Yeah, Scotland.
Yes, started with the fight for the right to vote in the middle of the 19th century. And the right to vote was only gave in the beginning of the 20th century, 1917 or something like that. But there were women part of the movement that were against the right to vote, not because they were against the right to vote, but they thought there were more important things to fight for, right? They couldn't agree on what were the right objectives. And that is part of the progress. We are not going to agree on everything, but we need to be open to listen to different views and respect other opinions, right? Which is something that is lacking a lot nowadays in this in society, right? We move to the extremes too much on both sides, and we are having very difficult time to find common ground on everything: religion, politics, and rights, and everything, right? But again, the fact that it's out there, that we are discussing, that is being, it's something that things that we discuss today, they existed 50, 100 years ago, but they were not discussed because it wasn't open to discussion. You couldn't discuss. You were still trying to receive the right to vote, right? In Switzerland, women started to vote in 1971. Can you believe that? Switzerland, 1971. Yeah. Saudi Arabia, women got the right to drive 4 years ago, 3 years ago. So you see, we still have a long way to go, right? And all the modern religions discriminate against women, some way or another, even if it's not clear, but all of them. The time before religions, the paganism, there was some places that there was no discrimination, but once the big religions start to rule the world, all of them discriminate against women in either in the open or not exactly in the open. The Jewish, the Muslims, the Catholics, the Christians, all of them. The Chinese, the Japanese, the Indians from India, all of them discriminate against women. So again, Why is that? Because we, imperfect spirits, as a society, we still are educated in a sense that the stronger prevails. It's something that we bring instinctively from the time that we were primitives, right? But we still haven't been able to overcome that instinct that we bring with us. That is not the natural law, but it is us as instinctive beings, right?
Just to mention what she said about this whole gay communities or transgender, do you think it's maybe in the past life, these kids, maybe a boy that was born a boy was a woman in a past life, and it's hard time to accept that it's a man in this life, or
yes, why this happens? Again, there are many different explanations, right? Because the easy way out for us spiritists is to say, oh, in past incarnation, he was a woman, so now he's a boy and he's not used to. But it's not like that, because if we are, if we don't have any issues with our progress, we have no problem in changing from one side to another. This is traumas. We all have traumas. We all have made many mistakes, and so let's say as a man you abused women through several incarnations, and now you are born a woman against your will, unconsciously, right? So what do? You want to be a man. Okay, that's one of the reasons that it can happen, right? But again, we cannot say that all homosexuals or LGBT is because they are rejecting their gender. No, sometimes there are other reasons, including spirits that are born in that group, because they are the ones that are going to make them move forward. It's not that they are not happy with their gender. It's just that by being placed in that group, they will help the group to move forward. Okay, so several different reasons, but one of them, yes, it is the rebellion against the gender you were born with because of previous traumas. Okay.
And also, if you have an affinity with someone from the same gender, like even if you're not, gay, but you fall in love with someone that's the same gender as you, I would think.
Yeah, we are eternal spirits, right? So it's possible that you come, let's say two women that have been together and in love, in the terms of the pure love between them for many incarnations, and they come here and they feel this attraction to each other, and maybe it's not really a sexual attraction, but they need to express it in a sexual way because that's how they know how to express the affection, right? Or because society ends up moving us in that direction, but not necessarily they are just in identifying with each other. And I think we see some examples of that. We see more with women than with men, in my view, but that women that have relationships with other women and then have relationships with men and don't have other relationships with women, right? Again, the eternal spirit doesn't have gender. So the natural law is a man and women to be together because they are able to procreate. And the survival of humanity needs procreation. So that's the natural law. But it's not for everybody, right? Chico Xavier, he didn't have any kids, and he left much more to us than a lot of couples that have left kids, right? So each one has their own role here, and We have to understand and accept. We never know exactly what's the role of each person, right? But again, we have to remember always the natural law is a man and a woman together because they are able to procreate, and that's the survival of humanity, the necessity of spirits to reincarnate. Again, there are 3 times more spirits in the spiritual world around Earth than incarnated. So they are all need to come and to reincarnate. So we need to procreate, right? So that's a necessity. So because it's the natural law, it will always prevail. The majority of the population of the world is heterosexual, right? Because that's the natural law. But again, we have to learn to respect minorities, all minorities, race, religion, gender, everything, because we all have the same rights and responsibilities. Okay?
John.
Yes, Carol.
Hi, this is Carol. Yeah, in terms of moving forward and in terms of education, it was very interesting yesterday on Women's International Day. A radio station out of New Jersey, WQXR, which is a classical radio station, endeavored to use the entire 24 hours to celebrate the conducting skills of women and the musicianal capabilities of women. So it was rather unusual because normally you might get to hear the music of one woman composer maybe twice a week, rarely. And this was a great endeavor to hear things the entire day dedicated to women. So it was an educational moment and a moment of progress. So things do shift, they do change.
Yeah, and we have to understand and accept that progress is slow. We try to jump, we try to impose the changes too fast. And if we try too fast, the resistance becomes more stronger. So we need to understand that we don't need to agree with it, and we need to fight for progress, but we need to accept and understand that progress happens at a slower pace than what we would wish, right? I said last week, right? Ideally, we shouldn't need a Women's Day, right? Because we all equal, and all days are the same for everybody. But because of the oppression that still exists today, we still need Women's Day and Black Month and Women's Month, and all these minorities have to have their opportunity to be put in the limelight, to call the attention of humanity to their needs and to the necessity of respect. Okay. All right. So from women to death. Equality in death.
823. Where does the desire for immortalizing one's memory through funeral monuments originate? It is the last act of pride. Is the extravagance of funeral monuments more commonly due to relatives who want to honor the memory of their deceased loved ones than to the desire for the deceased themselves? It is an act of pride on the part of relatives who want to glorify themselves. These demonstrations are not always for the deceased. Rather, they gratify their own vanity by making an impression on others and displaying wealth. Do you think that the memory of their beloved ones is less strong in the hearts of the poor because they can only place a single flower to lie upon their graves? Do you think that marble can save the name of a person who has led a useless life on earth from oblivion?
That's a very, very good and direct answer from the spirits. And I was reading this and I was thinking about Kardec, right?
Yeah, he's good.
Yes, I was thinking of Kardec's grave there at Père Lachaise, which is a beautiful grave and one of the most visited places in Père Lachaise. I'm not sure Kardec is, I think he's, he's not really worried about it. He understands it. But what the spirits are telling us here, again, there is this famous story of Chico Xavier, right? That in the last part of his life, he received letters from deceased ones to their families, right? Consoling letters to the families. And there's this famous case of a couple that lost their son. And they went to Chico to try to receive a letter. And every day the father will go to the tomb and stay a long time there at the cemetery. And the letter from the son tell the father, every day that you go to the cemetery, I stay home with mom to help and console her. So, again, our physical body, it's like an old clothes. Once we have no use for it, it doesn't matter what happens to it, right? That's why me personally, I want to be cremated, so it's not anywhere. You cannot go anywhere to visit what is not me anymore. But again, I respect people that need, and I understand the necessity that some people and family have to have a place to go, to remember. It is important sometimes for the discarnated spirit to understand and see that the family give importance to them going to the place. We have to respect and understand that. But we need to understand also that when we need to look behind, right, the beautiful tombs and the beautiful places that people are trying to show off more than paying homage to the deceased ones. How much is pride and how much is really the need to have a place to go to visit a loved one, right? So again, the spirits say very clear here. Do you think the memory of their loved one is less strong in the hearts of the poor? No, it's not, right? We all miss our loved ones in different ways, but we all missed. So what they are trying to say here, it's funerals, monuments, and these things. It's something that we need to get over it eventually on our evolutionary path. Again, understandable, still need, many people still need, and that's fine. But if you think that the only way you can think about your loved one that departed is going to the cemetery to visit him or her, then something is wrong with you, right? Because you don't really understand our status as eternal spirits that are not connected to the remains of that physical body that are there in the cemetery. So again, for us to understand that it is something that we still need to learn more to evolve us as general, right? Us in spiritism, we need to know better. We know better and we should act according to our knowledge, giving less importance to the remains of the physical body, because those that leave behind their physical body, they are generally not attached to their physical body. Generally, we know that cases that you cannot detach from your physical body mentally, right? And the spirits are attached to their physical body, to the decaying physical bodies. And we see in some books of André Luiz, there is one book that he specifically goes to the cemetery, right? What book was that? I forgot now. Oh, actually, no, it's I came back, Voltaire, that he sees the woman crying over the spirit there in the cemetery and still connected to their physical body. So again, there are the physical, the connection between the spirit and the spiritual, the physical body. After a maximum of 72 hours, we are completely disconnected. Okay. Now, the mental connection that you have with your physical body can last much longer because of different reasons, right? The suicides that couldn't find the end of their life as they thought they would, they get stuck with their physical bodies. Those that do not understand that there is life after death, and they don't recognize that they are dead, so they are in a confused state of mind, and they stay close to where they are buried without understanding what's really going on with them. Can happen also. Yes, when they have an accident, many times they don't understand that they have died. But in an accident, if you have if you are a spirit that has lived a good life in terms of progress, you are going to receive all the assistance you need. It's just that if you make choices during your life that will prevent you from receiving that assistance, disbelief in the spiritual world, or you being, not being very good morally in your life, then that will prevent you from receiving assistance, and then you can get stuck with your remains because you don't know anything else. But sometimes it's better for you to get stuck with your remains than to be grabbed by inferior spirits and enslaved in the spiritual world, like many other cases. So okay, last one of this.
824. Is funeral pomp and circumstance reprehensible under all circumstances? No, it is fair when honoring the life of dignified individuals, and it conveys a good example. The grave is the inevitable end of all human distinctions and the destiny of all human beings. Erecting ostentatious monuments is a vain attempt by wealthy individuals to immortalize the memory of their lives. Time will destroy these monuments as surely as it will destroy their bodies. The memories of their deeds, whether good or bad, are more resistant than their tombs. The pomp of their funerals will neither wash away their immoral actions nor raise them a single step on the ladder of the spirit hierarchy.
Okay, so again, it's interesting. The answer from the spirits is reprehensible under all circumstances, funeral pomp, and the spirits are direct. No, if it is fair when honoring the life of dignified individuals, and it conveys a good example. When you have someone important that discarnate, right? And there is this whole event of honoring that person. There is nothing wrong with that, because it's a way of showing our appreciation for the work that person did in life. So again, life of dignified individuals. Now, when you are, what the spirits are trying to make the difference here is, paying, doing pomp and circumstance for individuals that do not deserve, right? It's when you see, for instance, we recently watched the funeral of the Queen, right, in England. It was a beautiful event. Again, you can say, do we need all of that? Is it necessary? Well, you can have different opinions, but it was important for the country. The majority of people in that country find it important and want to pay their respects to the queen that was queen for almost 70 years, right? So again, we need to understand where we are as a society, if our evolution path, right? Some customs and some traditions, there is nothing wrong in respecting them and carrying them until we no longer need them, because, you know, eventually we will no longer need them. Once we become more evolved spirits and we understand the transition is the separation is temporary, the transition that is going to be more and more subtle as we progress, because our physical bodies will be less and less gross. I'm talking about centuries, millennia, right? As we walk towards being perfect spirits. So evolved spirits are able to live both here and in the spiritual world, like Chico Xavier was always interacting with the spiritual world at all times, right? So, but still struggling with his physical body a lot. But you know, again, when he discarnated, there was millions of people that went to his funeral and they still go to visit his tomb. I went there, and you know, it's like Kardec's tomb in Père Lachaise. You know, there are thousands of people every day that go there, or not thousands, but hundreds. Because why? Because we still need that. We have to respect that. You know, we cannot force change. It is important to honor individuals that deserve being honored. It is important for us still as society to have some rituals in the process of the separation with our loved ones that have departed. So, you know, again, out of respect, sometimes even for others, even if we don't, let's say you lose a loved one in your family, you don't really think it's necessary to go through all this funeral event, but you know that there are many in your family or friends of the person that have departed that for them is important. So you do it out of respect for them and for the ones that stayed behind. So all of this is for us to understand that we don't need to go to extremes. What we need to do is to understand. Is it needed? No, that we understand.
Yeah, I think we're,
Is it useful? Sometimes.
you have to respect and accept, understand.
Yeah.
You don't have to understand. I don't understand. I respect. I accept, but I don't understand. Makes no sense to me. Sorry, but I respect. I don't think I have to understand. I don't understand. And I don't get to understand.
Yeah, well. Okay. I think the understanding is the understanding of the limitation of the evolutionary path of other individuals, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not allowing this to happen. It can be a lack of respect to those that
Absolutely.
need it, right?
No, the understanding is internal.
Yes.
I don't understand why anybody needs to look at a dead body. Why anybody needs to go to the cemetery to stay where there's a bunch of bones. To me, makes no sense. I don't understand. But I accept and respect. And I do not contradict anyone who wants to do it.
Perfect. Yeah, it's exactly that. That's the idea, right?
Yeah, that's not understanding. I do not understand.
I understand that you don't understand.
Okay. All right, so we finished this chapter. I'm now going to start the next chapter, which is Law of Freedom, which is a beautiful chapter. And chapter 10, we are almost finishing in the moral laws. We will do it next week. Any final questions, comments here? Okay, so for those that haven't heard it yet, Divaldo tickets are available again. We were able to increase the capacity of the room. Actually, the room has more capacity, had already. It was just a misunderstanding with the United Nations. So tickets are available again for sale. You can go to the Tri-State Spiritist Federation website, or you can follow the links. And if you need any help, you let me know. That's on in 2 weeks' time from today, the 23rd. It will be a Thursday, so we won't have our studies on that Thursday. But next week we still have Law of Freedom, okay? This Saturday, the lecture that we have is by Anísio Rezem from California. Let me get what he's going to talk about, because we received it late in the week. Okay, it's dealing with psychic and mediumistic phenomena in today's world, presented by Anísio Rezem from San Diego. Okay, that's Saturday, 11 a.m. This Sunday, which is the second Sunday of the month, we are going to study the Gospel according to Spiritism. And the book club next Wednesday, chapter 3, part 2. And I think that's it. Okay, Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. Thank you, Elmo. And thank you, Philip. Thank you for reading, Philip. Infinite Creator and Divine Intelligence, we give thanks to be together this evening for our studies of the Spirit's book. We are grateful for the topics of equal rights for men and women and equality in death. Men and women are equal according to God, but throughout history, men asserted their domination. Generally, men and women have different roles and abilities. But as humans, we can learn from each other in order to progress. During the interim, which is now, human laws should try to establish equal rights for men and women. However, we must do our part. We should try to respect each other to move the progress forward. As perfect spirits, we will have no gender. Respect the living and the deceased. Extremes are unnecessary. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, for guiding us tonight and inspiring us. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within, and may we share it with our loved ones and those who are near and dear to us. We pray for inner peace. We pray for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical world as well as the spiritual world. We ask for the guidance of SGNY and all Spiritist centers throughout the world. May they grow, may they expand, and may they be protected each and every day. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. May we go forth now and remind ourselves to be beacons of love, light, peace, and charity. So be it.